This one's going to be interesting. Metatron versus Dr. Ditch himself. So I was browsing YouTube and a Metatron video came up, and I was quite excited to see that he finally, in one of his React videos, brought Roll Kanaidike up. A good friend of mine and a friend of the channel, you've seen him before. However, I was a little bit surprised when I saw the title of the video, which was that he does not agree with him. And I thought, knowing Roll personally and just genuinely knowing how well versed of a historian he is, I was not expecting at all to see a video where Metatron disagreed with him. So I watched the video with an open mind, and I love Metatron as a YouTuber, one of my favourites. I'm actually a channel member of his. It's by no means an attack on Metatron at all. But if I'm being quite honest, and I generally really love how pedantic Metatron is, I think that he was a little bit too pedantic in this case and often disagreed with Roll a little bit unnecessarily, or maybe he just didn't fully understand his points completely. I'm not trying to accuse him of anything. It felt like he was maybe disagreeing sort of for the sake of it. I'm not trying to speak for what he did, it's just sort of how I felt when I watched the video, which usually I really don't feel that at all. Maybe it's my personal bias coming in because, again, I know Roll quite well, but it seems that many of the comments in the video also agreed with me. There were just sort of a few sections where I was like, I think you're just misunderstanding what Roll's saying here, or in a couple seconds after him disagreeing, Roll would sort of elaborate on the point and they would basically be saying the same thing. I'm not going to do a commentary on the whole video. There's sort of one section that I want to touch on, which is a little bit more of my area. Well, in this case, Bronze Age, but an ancient Greek sort of topic about cavalry. I'll leave the link to Metatron's original video in the description. I highly recommend you to check it out. There's a few other moments in there as well that I had a few issues with, but this one I'm just sort of going to touch on this, which is his mention about cavalry in the movie Troy. One other just sort of note here before we sort of get started is, and again, genuinely, I really enjoy Metatron's channel, but the title of this video, I disagree with this insider historian. I was a little bit confused when I was watching it because it seemed that about 80% of what Roll was saying he actually agreed with. So again, just as a sort of a personal touch here, no attack at all on Metatron, I felt the title was a little bit misleading, as again, sort of overall, I thought they did agree basically on everything. And that being said, let's grab your shovels and pitchforks and start digging deep into this video here. So let's go. That was an absolutely terrible joke. Hopefully I cut that.
Whoa. In the period where this poem is set, there was no mounted cavalry. And even in later periods, you rarely have people actually fighting on horseback. It's hard to work out how to use cavalry tactically. It's difficult to use it if you don't have very many of them. And horses are just very precious. It costs an enormous amount of money to maintain a horse. So you don't want to waste your horse on something like this guy.
I don't know though, because I'm not trying to be like countering everything he says. I'm really not trying to do that, and I apologize if I sound a little condescending in doing that, but Macedonian cavalry is a thing. When he says in this period, I wonder what he means exactly. Because, I mean, Macedonian cavalry is a thing.
This is sort of where I wanted to touch on. I think it's quite clear that he is specifically talking about the late Bronze Age, the time of the Trojan War, the time of Homer's Iliad, which takes place around 1200 BC, so close to 1,000 years before Macedonian cavalry takes place, and he's absolutely correct in this instance. So in that sense, we don't really see mounted cavalrymen. We do see charioteers, and that's sort of the key difference here is even into the archaic and sort of early classical, cavalry is predominantly transportation or mounted missile troops. So even if we look at the Spartan Hippias, which we're actually not sure if they did ride horses, but we definitely know that they didn't ride them to battle. They would have, if they had them, Hippias basically just translates as horsemen or horse owners, they would have ridden them to war and then dismounted. Otherwise, we know that most other mounted troops, for instance in the Persian Empire, were mounted archers. So we don't really see shock cavalry in that sense of a sort of mounted warrior charging with his horse to battle in an ancient Greek context. Macedonian cavalry is a little bit different, but again, several hundred years, or close to 1,000 years after the Trojan War. Homer actually sort of describes the charioteers in this era sort of as a taxi service for the elites, so they would ride into battle on their chariots, dismount, fight, and then if they wanted to relocate, they'd hop back on their chariot and ride around. So again, Rowley is correct here that in this period, cavalry were not how they were depicting them in this film. The Trojans sort of fighting on horseback. It's sort of one of those Cleopatra and pyramid situations when, just because we sort of labelled the Trojan War as ancient Greek and Alexander the Great as ancient Greek, there is close to 1,000-year period separating the two. So very much in this period, cavalry, mounted cavalry, weren't really deployed on the battlefield. If they were, they were in chariot form, and later on we sort of start to see mounted cavalry. That's my commentary on this. I hope if Metatron ends up watching this video, again, no attack on him at all, genuinely massive fan of the channel. I just sort of wanted to touch upon this here, as I thought it was a little bit of an odd comment to not disagree with, but to bring up. So I just wanted to sort of shed some more light on cavalry use in the period, which is pretty much unused, especially in a Hellenic context. The Greeks didn't really use cavalry that much, but when it was used, very much more mounted archers or a means of transportation, not really shock cavalry charges that we see in the films. Thanks very much for watching this video. Please go and watch the original video that Metatron released. Again, link is in the description. And thanks for watching. Special thanks to our channel members for supporting the channel. I know this is a really sort of quick video, but I just sort of wanted to get it out here whilst Metatron's video was still sort of hot and active. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you in the next one.